What's the dumbest thing you believed as a kid? That dinosaurs were still alive on another island, and I kept asking my mother if we could go to the island with all the dinosaurs, then she told me they were all dead. Clearly your mom never heard of Isla Nublar. That sex was literally sleeping next to one another and making moaning sounds. I heard things I wanna forget. I thought sex was making out with your shirt off, but not pants off because that would be gross, lmao. Yeah, imagine taking your pants off in front of someone else, how gross. I remember thinking even making contact was sex. I bumped a girl with my pelvis dangerously close in elementary. I was scared she'd get pregnant. I thought I was real wise for thinking it was where you put your penis in their vagina and just sleeping like that. That actor's TV characters would have to come back into a studio for each rerun of a show movie. I would always be so amazed that people would have the time to go into a room with a camera multiple times a day, just so I could watch them do the same thing over and over again. I used to think that laugh tracks were somehow real life, like I was hearing everyone else laughing who was watching the same show I was. In hindsight, this is really stupid. Obviously the sound is coming from the speakers, but growing up we only had TV at my grandma's place, and I remember laughing really loud when the laugh track came on, so all her neighbors would think I got the joke too. I thought that the show was still going on during the commercial breaks, so I was always worried about what I had missed while the commercials were on. When I was young, my parents told me that if I kept leaving the fridge open, then I would freeze the whole world, and then no one would like me. And then no one would like me. I'm still cackling like a fucking madman at that for some reason. Hey. There's that little asshole who froze the world. We hate him. Climate scientists hate him. See how one boy stopped global warming with one simple trick. Every time you walk by. Fucking ice lover. For some reason, I thought every car that was made had to do a crash test. Probably because my dad once told that our car had a very good rating in the crash test. I was amazed by the fact that all cars were repaired so well before being sold. I thought this as well. I saw some show where they were testing teddy bears by lighting them on fire and said every toy was tested. I thought everything ever was tested. Of course, for some high-end stuff it has to all get tested, but I thought people were paid to play with toys and wear clothes and play video games and stuff to ensure each and every item was tested and working. And if something came broken, it was the tester's fault. I got confused at first. I was thinking you meant every model of car, rather than literally every single car. I remember asking my mother when I was a child what happens when all the numbers get to 9 on the mileage meter. She replied, it will turn over. My little sister, who was in the backseat, piped up and exclaimed, with us in it. My brother and I wrote letters to Santa, and our dad would open up the coal furnace door, and we would throw them in the fire. We believed they would go directly to the North Pole. My mom had us throw our letters in a wood fire, and when sparks came down and rested on the burning paper, those were the fire fairies, and they carried the ashes to Santa, where he magically reassembled them and read your letter. Relevant username. My dad would put them on his desk so that he could mail them on the way to work in the morning. I suppose that burning them would make his life more difficult since he wouldn't know what we wanted. I told my kids I'd mail them too. I have them stashed to show them again as adults because some of the letters are too cute. I thought a baby just randomly appeared in a woman's womb. I stayed awake crying about it because I didn't want to become pregnant. Same, oh my god. And at one point I somehow got the idea that stepping on grass was what made you pregnant, that there were little thorn things too small to notice in the grass, and they took years, but they traveled up to your belly and made a baby in there. But the years could depend, that's why people had babies at different ages. I was so scared that it would happen to me. That maybe I just stepped on a faulty thorn that only had like 5 years on it, and I would get pregnant at 8. I had no idea where I got this idea from. I had a similar belief, except I thought it happened once a woman got married. As if the body knew the woman's relationship status and decided to form a fetus. I thought pretty much the same thing, but I thought it was caused by kissing. I would stay up at night thinking, but how does the woman's body know it's a married kiss and not a normal one? LMAO, I'm just imagining a little girl losing her shit over that. Me too. Me 3. My sister said you didn't have a choice, it just happened. That Dumbus is my twin, we were the same age and equally as stupid as each other. Why I thought she was right. I thought that drinking and driving meant any drink. I burst into tears the first time I heard about drinking and driving. My dad always had a Dr. Pepper when we went places, and I thought he was going to go to jail forever. I distinctly remember yelling at my dad after he filled up and grabbed a chocolate milk and took a sip as we drove out of the gas station. Everyone in the car started laughing at me. I just want us all not to die. Me too. I told someone my mom drinks and drives all the time, so it probably isn't that bad. Word got back to my mom about that, and she was mortified. She's a Mormon and that made it even worse. I lived on an Air Force base growing up, where they check IDs to get back on base. The DARE people had just been to my school. My mom had a fresh Diet Coke in her cup holder, and I was instructed to tell a trusted adult if a parent was drinking and driving, so going back on base, I spoke up to the guard checking us in. You can imagine how well that went over, and even after that ordeal, my mom still didn't explain the difference between a Coke and a beer, as she didn't want me to know anything about alcohol, so I just lived in fear that some drinks were okay and others weren't, and I didn't know how to tell the difference, and if my mom would get pulled over for having a Dr. Pepper instead of a Coke one day. Like even my 2-year-old knows some drinks are only for adults and some drinks are okay for everyone. I don't think it's that hard to put into kid-friendly language. I just remembered they also talked to us about drugs and smoking and how even chew is bad, but I didn't even know what that was, and they didn't explain it, so in my little sheltered brain, I thought the chewy candy I got for Halloween was also bad and a drug. I'd seen cigarettes from my friends' parents, so I understood that, but they didn't go into detail what chew was, so I thought anything labeled chewy was bad. Fuck DARE, they made me a very paranoid kid and didn't explain things properly, just fearmongered to kids who couldn't understand or comprehend what was being said to them. They made me afraid of candy instead of properly explaining things in a way kids could understand.